What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, what an afternoon they had yesterday. Even if we recorded a 4 o'clock show, it would not have been timely enough to go through both Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp, which emerged, blew up the NFL, and seemingly is only getting started. It is Super Bowl week. Free agency, the offseason hasn't even fully begun yet. The Steelers haven't even made coaching changes, which is priority one, and already their first superstar wide receiver option has emerged. Meanwhile, Myles Garrett might leave the AFC North. People are talking, what's it going to take to get him? I mean, we'll explain it, but we might have to throw you, me, couple of fans, and everybody's house in on this deal to get Myles Garrett to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we're talking so much more. It has been a wild 24 hours. Only is right that the city of Pittsburgh has been just absolutely beautiful the last 24 hours because it's just as joyous, happy, excited that we have good things to talk about as me and you. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling good. I know I updated my laptop today, so hopefully we avoid all the glitch outs that we had yesterday, but I have a sneaking suspicion it wasn't the fact that you updated your computer. It was the fact that we were bashing on the Pro Bowl. I think the NFL saw that, said, you know what, shut these guys down, humble them for a bit and get them on to the next topic. But hopefully we don't have any of that happening today, but I'm excited to talk because these two stories, I mean, either one of them would be story of the week and in any given week, but this week in particular, in the NFL, these two stories are battling it out for first place. Not to mention, the rest of the sports world has gone on absolute chaos mode this on Super Bowl week.
Yeah, it's actually nuts. You didn't think the NBA could be topped after the Luka for Anthony Davis trade. You just looked at it and went, "That's it. That's the week. It's a great one. That's a fantastic move to highlight what's going on." It was on a Monday, a little bit, you know what I mean? A little, could have been a little flashier on a Tuesday or something. No, the NFL said, we are right here. We are ready. Speaking of bashing on the Pro Bowl, before we dive into Cooper Kupp, Myles Garrett, and everybody else, did you see the refs, the NFL, whoever it was, come out and say that it is a disgrace that people believe that the NFL is rigged and that refs are helping the Kansas City Chiefs, as if that's the problem with the situation, is that people are out here blaming them for blatantly bad calls that go towards the Chiefs. I'm not saying that the NFL is rigged. I'm not saying that they always give calls towards Kansas City. I'm just saying that when you have a spotlight on you, they're going to get noticed more and maybe make less bad calls, and that's the solution here. Did you see the 2-page statement about how it was a disgrace?
Yeah, I did not see that, but the funny thing is I don't think it matters what you say. Nobody's going to believe you. That's like nobody, you have no credibility to talk in the situation. Of course, you're going to disagree with that fact. Of course, you're going to say that it's egregious that anybody believes that that's the truth. Why even put it out? Why even give it credence? Why even let it see the light of day? Why even let people know that you're hearing it and you're offended by it? Because now everybody's going to say, see, now that's exactly what they would say if they were doing what we said they were doing. So I don't see the purpose in doing that, but I mean, I guess whatever, stand up for yourself.
I guess, but it definitely gave a little bit of a, you are 100% guilty and stop the talking. You're digging yourself a deeper hole here. I thought it was hilarious. Just came out like an hour ago after me and you were talking on a Zoom, got off, it immediately dropped. It was like NFL executive pissed that people do not appreciate the refs. I thought it was going to be about how they're going to replace refs with the ball tag thing, but they could care less about that. They're more upset about how people have caught on to them favoring the Chiefs, which, you know, be what it be. All right, let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers here. I don't know if you've missed it, and by you, I mean everybody listening. But the Los Angeles Rams have said, we are going to put the first name on the trade block this offseason, potentially one of the biggest names to emerge onto the trading block this offseason. We're going to start early. And according to Cooper Kupp, It is going to happen soon. Well, the LA Rams have informed their star wide receiver, former offensive player of the year, and a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers were interested in 3 months ago, that he will no longer be with the team and that the franchise is moving on this offseason, helping him find a new NFL home, somewhere where he feels comfortable, is competing for a championship. And he, in a very long statement, made it known that he's not happy about it and that he is determined to continue playing well, which I took as whoever's getting Cooper Kupp is about to have a stud, because there's a difference between somebody running their mouth and getting super pissed and looking for a new home and somebody who has been given up on, who has proven time and time and time again in this league that he is a stud, and that is Cooper Kupp. So the question emerges immediately, and I was tagged, shout out to Connor if you are listening, tagged me on Twitter literally the second that it dropped, which that I saw that notification before I saw Cooper Kupp's tweet was Noah Strackbein, let's go do it. And I was like, what are we doing? There it was. Cooper Kupp carries a $20 million cap hit to the team that acquires him in 2025 and a $19.85 million cap hit in 2026 if he remains on the roster. He will be pushing 33 years old heading into the 2026 season. He obviously dealt with injuries the last 2 years, but he had 710 yards in just 12 games this past season on top of 6 touchdowns, I believe, and finished his season off with 110 yards in the loss to, I believe, the Eagles. Is that who they lost to? The Eagles in the divisional round. I mean, look, Cooper Kupp might not be offensive player of the year material, but he is no schlump. And the Pittsburgh Steelers at the trade deadline were looking for Cooper Kupp. They wanted Cooper Kupp. Me and you were on the show talking about how sources have told us that the Pittsburgh Steelers look at Cooper Kupp as their guy, top option that could be available for them. And the Rams needed to lose one more game to say, we're getting rid of everybody. We're cleaning house. It's over. Instead, they went on a run because they have Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and everybody else that they seemingly are going to move on from and start this thing over with. That didn't happen then. It could happen now. I don't know what he comes for. I don't know what the price tag is. I'm going to ask you that question. But I think if it's good enough, if the price tag is at a place where you're not giving up these massive trades or these massive draft picks to go get Cooper Kupp, it opens your world up for so many possibilities. You could talk, why would you go Cooper Kupp? You'd rather go T. Higgins, or you'd rather go DK Metcalf, or you'd rather go Tyreek Hill, or you'd rather go Emeka Ibuka, or Matthew Golden, or whoever. I think all of those possibilities are still on the table. All I look at Cooper Kupp as is a guy that, if it's worth it, if the compensation that you have to give up, which seemingly will not be much, you can't imagine that a team that says we're getting rid of you is looking for a first-round pick or a second-round pick for Cooper Kupp. They have already made it known you're gone. They're just looking for anything they could get at this point. But again, I'll ask you this, or I'll ask you what we're looking for in this compensation, or what you believe the Steelers would have to give up. But I look at it and say, if it's worth it, if it's not worth too much, you can still go sign T. Higgins. You set yourself up for the NFL draft. You set yourself up to decide on George Pickens and say, George can go because we already have Cooper Kupp. Then we signed T. Higgins. Now we're in a place where we're not looking for 2. We already got 2. Let's move on from George and see what we can get, and then head into the NFL draft where maybe we could add a 3rd. Maybe that's a possibility, which I get it. Cooper Kupp is not George Pickens, but Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, and a rookie is not a bad wide receiver room to revamp things. I just think it opens up your possibilities. If you walk into the season with Cooper Kupp, George Pickens, and a first-round pick, that's not terrible. If you walk into the season with Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, and George Pickens, not terrible. If you walk into the season with Cooper Kupp, George Pickens, and everybody else on your roster, But if you walk into the season with Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, and everybody else on your roster, you're kind of in an okay spot. Like I feel like it just sets the Steelers up with the base that they can decide where they're going from here. What do you think you'd have to give up if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do you feel differently about Cooper Kupp than, I mean, I'm on board the trade for Cooper Kupp. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Steelers, and it's more so a security blanket, a safety blanket early in the offseason to say our world of possibilities is wide after this move.
I agree with you on liking the possibility of getting Cooper Kupp. I think you've gone a bridge, maybe 2 bridges, maybe 4 bridges, but you're in Pittsburgh, so it makes sense. Too far when you talk about Cooper Kupp on top of T. Higgins. I don't see that as a possibility. I don't see that as something that the Steelers can pull off this offseason. I don't see that as something that is going to come relatively close to any realm of happening, because I think the Steelers are not going to sit there and say, well, we acquired Cooper Kupp, we gave up a draft pick, which I'll get to in a second, and we took on his $20 million. Now we're going to pay T. Higgins $30 million, and we're going to spend $50 million on this wide receiver room whenever we have no answer at running back. Don't forget, you just depleted a draft asset to go out and get Cooper Kupp. You have nothing at running back besides Jaylen Warren. You need somebody else in that room. You might need to add to the offensive line. They've already showed that they seem to think that at the Senior Bowl. You need to add the defensive line. You need to restructure, or at the very least revamp, that cornerback room. There's just too many other areas that they need to address for me to believe that they're even going to think about going after 2 $20+ million wide receivers, let alone doing it with one. Do I see them doing it with one? Potentially. And I think that's where Cooper Kupp comes into play. In my eyes, it is much more realistic that they can swing a trade for Cooper Kupp, considering the fact that the Rams are saying now, we are ready to trade him. And the groundwork, you have to believe, was already in place around the trade deadline because the Rams were talking to the Steelers. So there's already having conversations, already had conversations on what that would look like. Whereas if you're T. Higgins, he still wants to go back to the Bengals. Now, I believe that that's a farce, that he's not going to be able to get what he wants while the Bengals are able to give Jamar Chase what he wants.
Yeah.
But Higgins has other options. If you can get Cooper Kupp, I think that is a much more realistic option. And I think that conversation starts around a mid-round pick. I think it starts at a 4th. And the question becomes, how okay are the Steelers with his injury history? And how okay are you with his injury history when we're talking about this? Because this is a guy that hasn't played more than 12 games, not just this past season, but in the past 3 seasons. When he plays, he's good. He's sure-handed. He's a good route runner. He's a technician out of the slot. He's somebody that could really help move along Roman Wilson in his progression. But how okay and how worried are you about his injury history? And that's what I think starts to play into effect when you're looking at trade compensation. I think it starts with a 4th in my eyes. I think it goes as high as a 3rd. I don't think the 2nd even becomes part of the conversation because the Rams have already played a card showing their desperation and how quickly they want to move on from him.
Yeah, I think a 4th is a good spot. I think if he goes for more than a 4th, I'm backing out. I'm okay with not having Cooper Kupp for a 3rd round pick. You could get, to be very honest, you're not going to get Cooper Kupp, but I'd rather take a shot on somebody in the 3rd round, whether it's a running back, a corner, a wide receiver, than I would have Cooper Kupp if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are just other options. Cooper Kupp is good. He's super reliable. I still think Cooper Kupp, when healthy, is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. But you could go get Christian Kirk. You can go get Chris Godwin. You could go try to make some crazy splash trade. You could sign George Pickens and go get a 1st round pick. And I think that's better than giving up a 3rd for Cooper Kupp. I would feel very comfortable with the 4th. I would feel very comfortable with the 4th. And I agree with you with the numbers when it comes to Cooper Kupp and T. Higgins, but I also see Cooper Kupp as a guy that could come in here. If you're not going to pay Justin Fields a lot of money, if you could, I mean, you're going to have to make some sort of splash at defensive line. I think that's going to happen. And you're probably going to pay $15 million for that splash, somewhere around there. Okay, that's going to be expensive. The running back's going to come in the NFL draft. I think for 1 year, you could figure it out to where Cooper Kupp could be worth $20 million and T. Higgins could be worth 30. Cooper's got to go after a year. This is a 1-year deal for Cooper Kupp. You're cutting him, and you're not taking on. I don't think the cap hit is anything in 2026 if you get rid of him, which makes things easier. But I hear you. It gets very complicated. I think Cooper Kupp, and let me ask you this: a Cooper Kupp and George Pickens plus I mean, if you're giving up a third round, no, you'd give up a fourth. I'm not even getting into the realm of the third. If the Steelers give up a third round pick for Cooper Kupp, that's a loss. You have not done good enough as Omar Khan to figure this thing out, especially if you're talking second round pick for Brandon Ayuk a year ago. No, AB went for a third round pick at 30 years old. Different wide receiver. If you walk into the season with Cooper Kupp and George Pickens, is that okay? And do you need to get a rookie, like a first 2-round rookie, to kind of finish off that room if that's the route you go?
I think you need to, for the simple fact that I don't know if the future is solidified with George Pickens, right? As of right now, if you walk into the season with Pickens and Kupp, you might be walking into the season with two players that aren't going to be on your roster in 2026. Yeah. And because of how good this draft is right now at the top with wide receivers, I think you do need to bring in that next guy and allow him to start building this year, whether that's a Emeka Egbuka, whether that's Luther Burden, whether that's, Matthew Golden or whoever it ends up being. I do think you need another guy, because while I do like Roman Wilson, a year off of football does a lot of things to a player, especially a rookie. We've seen Calvin Austin kind of come out the other side of it, but he's going to go into year 4 and still not be reaching his full potential. So you're pushing these guys who have missed their first year, their development back so far. You're going to need somebody who's going to be able to come in, a la a Brian Thomas type year, and kind of hit the ground running as a rookie. That way he can kind of get on the same path as some of these other young receivers, like a Roman Wilson, like a Calvin Austin. So even if you end up with Kupp and Pickens, I have no idea what the future holds for either of them in Pittsburgh. So I do think that you'd still need to go to the draft and be able to get somebody in those early rounds.
All right, let me toss a crazy hypothetical at you. Albert Breer said that the Steelers should call the Rams for Matthew Stafford. I'm not saying I'm on board with this. I think Matthew Stafford is easily, hands down, without question, the best quarterback the Pittsburgh Steelers could have in 2025. But I don't, like, in terms of realism, are we talking what's the actual outcome of this offseason? I think it's very, like, the emergency episode we would have if Matthew Stafford got traded to the Steelers would be nuts, and possibly very quiet, because we wouldn't know what to say, because nobody would see it coming. I mean, what are you giving up? Okay, you call the Rams. Hypothetical. We're having fun here. It's the offseason. You call the Rams. They say Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford's on the table. What are you giving up?
Oh, I mean, I don't, whatever I can. I mean, it depends. Are you all in on a Super Bowl next year? If you think
you have to be, if you're going Stafford.
If you think that you're a quarterback and a receiver away, okay, what's your price? Like, name your price. Yeah. Because I think in 2025, the best option you're going to get at quarterback, as you mentioned, is Matthew Stafford. But I think that conversation, you try everything possible to kind of hold back from giving too much, but you're still going to be on the end where you're saying the Rams are driving this negotiation, because you're getting a potential future Hall of Famer who showed this year that he still has it left in his arm. And you're getting a wide receiver that is going to vastly improve your wide receiver core. So I think the Rams would be aware of that. And I think that would drive the price up. I don't know if it gets to a first. I don't think that's possible, but I think there's a chance that it gets to a second and maybe a third round pick in this year's draft.
Would you give up a second, George Pickens and Broderick Jones for Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp?
No, you're creating more holes. Like, you're going out, like, both of them are over 30. You're creating more holes by getting rid of Broderick Jones. I understand there's some people that believe Broderick Jones is the worst football player that's ever touched God's green earth, but that's just simply not the fact. Like, people need to take off their bias in this. You're creating a hole. You would need another starting tackle, and you'd be in the same position that you are this year at wide receiver, except you'd have a 31-year-old injury-prone receiver instead of a 23-year-old alien on a rookie contract. So no, I would look at that deal if I was Omar Khan and say, call me back when you want to be serious.
Yeah. I don't know what the deal would be. I have no idea. I'd do it if the Steelers called and said, or if the Rams called and said, what do you want to do? I'd say, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out some way or another. I wouldn't want to give up George. I'd probably give up Broderick. I think I'd give up a second round pick. I don't know what else it would take, but I feel like I'd be, you could replace Broderick. Like, let's just be honest. I get Broderick's got a really crazy upside, but going and finding a left tackle, whether it's in the NFL draft or whether it's in free agency, like you could do that. You could bring back Dan Moore. And
in a vacuum, you could fill that hole left by Broderick in a vacuum. But the problem is you look at the Steelers and you say, all right, well, you only have so many assets.
Yeah.
And you're swinging for the fences. We agreed upon that. You're swinging for the fences and pulling this trade off. You have way too many holes to fill to be able to say, hey, let's take away from our assets that we have by trading away a draft pick and losing a lot of salary cap space. And let's also create another hole to make it harder to make a complete team next year. I agree. I understand you can replace Broderick if you're just looking to replace Broderick. But the problem is the hole that leaves and the assets that you lose, it's not going to result in you becoming a Super Bowl contender if you keep creating holes to kind of fill other ones. You're taking your hand off of one hole and you're trying to plug it with the other one, but then that hole creates two more down in the right side.
I agree. I think you could bring back Dan Moore, and then if you have to win a Super Bowl before the end of 2026. You have to. And if you don't, you're talking complete, it's done. The ship has sunk. You have nothing left. You're not winning 9 games in 2027. Stafford's retired. You're done. You got nothing. You are starting from scratch. You trade TJ, you get rid of Minka, Cam's retiring. You got 2 years to win it all. Do I think that would happen? No. Do I think it'd be fun? Yeah. I think it'd be a good time. I think Arthur Smith and Matthew Stafford would be a good time. I really truly do. But will it happen? No. Cooper Kupp, very real possibility that we will continue to monitor. I have not heard anything to this point. I think it's too early. People are focused on Super Bowl and the quarterback and so many other things. I don't think Cooper Kupp is his top priority where we sit right now. I'm sure conversations have been had. It's more a matter of, early conversations compared to, like, we could all say the Steelers called the Rams. Duh. Where did that conversation go? That's what we want to know, and I'm sure that's what we'll find out here in the coming days. Let's move on to the other massive headline that happened yesterday. And look it. I don't know about you. I really don't. And one day, if I'm not able to cover the Steelers anymore and I have to go cover another NFL team and that team happens to be the Browns, I'm screwed. They are going to hate me over there. They will have so much dirt on me. It will be crazy. I don't know about you. I a little bit, kind of, sort of, little kind of bit woke up this morning and felt a little bit better about how I feel about Myles Garrett as a human being. Just kind of looked at it and said, got a good guy, maybe a good guy, maybe a little bit. Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns, shocked the entire NFL world yesterday. The Browns, being the Browns, are saying this is never going to happen. If I had to bet, it's going to happen. And Myles Garrett is going to find himself out of the AFC North, probably out of the AFC as a whole, hopefully not on a team like Detroit or Washington or Philadelphia or another team that, if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers trying to win a Super Bowl, you could pretty much shut that hope down, because once you get to the Super Bowl, Troy Fautanu and Broderick Jones are going to have to block the craziest edge rushing duo the NFL has seen in the last 30 years. That's what could happen. I don't expect him to remain in Cleveland. People will ask the question, what do the Steelers need to do to get Myles Garrett? Well, take what the best bid that will be there for a guy who just turned 29 years old, who is in the prime of his career, who has had one non-double-digit sack season, and that was as a rookie, and say, okay, it's 2 first-round picks. It's a first-round pick and 2 second-round picks. It's a first-round pick and 2 third-round picks and a player. Whatever that is, whatever the highest bidder is, you want to know how the Steelers get them? You take that and you double it, and you say, there you go, guys. You could have pretty much everything we own on top of a couple of cars in the parking lot, a private jet for Andrew Berry for the rest of time, and, maybe, just maybe, you take somebody crazy off our hands that we shouldn't get rid of, but Maybe we will this time around. Would Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Myles Garrett, and TJ Watt be the coolest defensive line in the NFL? Without question. Would it happen? Never. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Your reaction when you saw Myles Garrett wanting out of the Cleveland Browns in another saga of the Browns be the Browns, man. And they just continue to be the Browns.
Yeah, to add on to what you were talking about with what the Steelers would have to trade, I think you'd have to give away one of the three rivers. I think you'd have to do it.
Oh,
it
definitely. The best of the three. Allegheny River's gone.
Okay. I was going to say, what is the best of the three in your eyes?
Allegheny. It's the Mon Wharf is disgusting. Or the Monongahela is disgusting. And the Ohio River is pretty much Cleveland's. So the Allegheny, you're getting rid of it's going to be renamed Andrew Berry River.
Yeah, that'll be hilarious during Pirates games whenever there's home runs. But no, whenever I saw this, I stood out of my chair and had to take a walk. Like, I was like, wow, there's no way this is real. And then you read it and you double check the sources, and it's coming from Adam Schefter. It's coming from Ian Rappaport. And you say, man, that is insane. And I understand there's people out there that are saying, well, Brandon Ayuk formally requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers, but he also didn't say at the very end of his statement, the goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for a Super Bowl, or to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I request a trade from the Browns. Like, that is very much so putting dirt on the franchise that built you. So I don't think there's a bridge to be kind of rebuilt here, especially because Myles Garrett's on his way down to New Orleans. He's doing media all week. You think he's going to sit there and not get asked the question, why did you request a trade from the Browns? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? No, he's going to be asked that question all week long, and it's Myles Garrett. This is a guy that has time and time again, and we sat here on this podcast and talked about it after the Snow Globe game. He talks about himself more than he talks about the team. He is somebody who, hey, for better or worse, he looks out for number one, and number one to him is number 95 to everybody else. So he wants a Super Bowl. He wants to leave. That's not going to change. It's not, hey, I want more money, because Cleveland's willing to give him money. They're probably willing to give him ownership stakes. They're probably willing to give him any part of the city that he wants. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah, it's Myles Garrett County now. That's what that is.
Yeah.
It's not about money to him. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to be on a good team, and he doesn't think he can do it with the Cleveland Browns. So I was as shocked as anybody. Like I said, I literally had to get up and take a walk, and I don't see this going in Cleveland's favor, where time will heal all wounds, and he's going to sit there and say, you know what? You're right. I can see the future for Cleveland, and I think it's a Super Bowl. I don't think anybody sees that in Cleveland's future right now, and I don't think Andrew Berry can say anything to anybody to make them believe that. So I think he's gone, and I think the Steelers, they dodged a bullet. They don't have to see him 2 times a year anymore.
Yeah, they got to hope that they only get to see him once every 4 years. That is what they are praying for in this situation. I agree. The only way that you're saving this, in my eyes, if you are the Cleveland Browns, is by calling the Rams and saying, what do you want from Matthew Stafford? We'll give it to you. Doesn't matter what it is. Because that's what it would take is, oh, we made the move to make us a contender. Are they a real contender? No. But we did it. We saved face here. That's, in my eyes, the only way you go about this. Deshaun Watson miraculously coming back, not happening. And for everybody who says, because I agree with you, the conversation is going to go contract. Is this about a contract? No, it's not about a contract. He's made this known for weeks now, how he's going to sit down with ownership and management of the Cleveland Browns and figure out their plan to how are we going to become a contender right now and not have to wait, because he wants to win. And they clearly couldn't come. The sit-down conversation was, well, Deshaun tore his Achilles for a second time doing a TikTok dance. So that's where we're at, dude. That's where we're at. We might get Shedeur Sanders in the draft. That's a possibility. But that's not, I'm sorry, but Shedeur Sanders might be great in the NFL. He's not winning the Super Bowl in 2025. It's just not happening. And the Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, miraculous runs, they don't happen most times. And I get it. They've happened twice. They don't happen most. And he knows that. He's aware of that. There's no way he, in my eyes, comes back to the Cleveland Browns. It's over. It's been fun. It's been a good time. He is, in my eyes, looking for a contending team. At the end of the day, though, the Cleveland Browns get to decide where this guy goes. And while he wants to go be a contender, they decide where he wants to go. They decide where Myles Garrett is looking to be in 2025 or will play in 2025. And if they want to say he's going to the Patriots, they say he's going to the Patriots. You know, I don't think it works out. It's because slippery slope.
You start doing that. Cleveland's already a place that people are looking at the Deshaun Watson deal and everything that's gone on with that and how they've handled that and saying, man, I don't know how I feel about going to the Cleveland Browns. Do they really take care of their players? Look what they did to Baker Mayfield, the guy that got them their first playoff win in Lord knows how long. Mm-hmm. Now, if they have this situation where Myles Garrett wants out, at least if they acquiesce to sending him to a contender, players will be like, all right, well, at least on the way out, even when he's spitting in the face of the franchise, they're doing what's right for him and they're doing what he would like to do. That kind of saving face is stuff that organizations do all the time. I think that with the way that Cleveland looks now, they need to be able to send him somewhere that is going to, obviously everywhere is going to pay them. So it's not going to make that much of a difference in return. Yeah. They need to send him somewhere where he's going to be happy to ensure that they can still be a half decent free agent destination in the future.
I agree with that. And if I was running a franchise, that would be great words of wisdom. But you want to know how the Cleveland Browns handled the Deshaun Watson saga, just like hitting a breaking point, hitting the point of it's over. The entire world knows that it's not going to work out. This was an awful move. You got it. You got to jump ship. You have to jump ship. This is a terrible decision. You messed up so bad. You don't know how they handled that? They gave him another year on his contract. So I get it. I hear you 100%. It does not surprise when the Browns are the Browns and they make Browns moves. That's just what happens. That's just in the NFL. You know what I mean? Myles Garrett is standing, just like you said, number one is number 95. You're telling me that an NFL owner is not looking out for number one all the time and wouldn't take the comments in the situation and just be a little what's the word I'm looking for? A little petty about the comments in the situation with Myles Garrett. I think it's a possibility. I hear you, and I think most likely he ends up in a contender. And hopefully, I mean, like, it would be cool if like that's the thing that gets somebody over the Chiefs. That would be awesome. But you know, it's I think it's 50-50 shot. Man, maybe 70-30 shot that he 70 in contender, 30 in non-contender, okay, that he ends up in the Giants, you know, or the Jets, or even worse, the Tennessee Titans, who have the number one pick in the draft and need an edge rusher. Just saying. All right. That's the big news of the week here. We got Cooper Kupp, possibly Matthew Stafford, and Myles Garrett. With that said, that's everything on our agenda. We're going to start diving into all your questions. That's how we'll end the show, as we do every single day. But first, we're going to take a quick break here from our boys over at DraftKings. Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner, and it's the perfect time to get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they're giving all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. This is your shot to make every last play a moment to be remembered. Don't wait. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our code ALLSteelers. The crown is yours. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. I do it all the time. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. We were both laughing at this one during the break. I saw you. Myles, that was a good comment, my friend. That was definitely a good comment. I appreciate this one. Had me cracking up. All right, we're going to finish off the show the same way we do every single day. We're going to answer all of your questions, so make sure you toss them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Well, I want to start off with what you just had up there for our audio listeners. The comment was Myles Garrett looks like if Childish Gambino took the super soldier serum. So I spit out some water for that one. That was a good one.
That was a good one. I laughed, and then I looked at you also laughing, and I was like, that was beautiful. That was a great comment.
All right, let's jump to Steelers fan 8. Appreciate you as always. Says, would you think, or who do you think would be a better pickup in a trade or free agency for us? Tyreek Hill or T. Higgins?
I personally, if I'm going to be very honest, I think T. Higgins is the better move for the Steelers. Tyreek Hill makes me nervous. He's only played with good quarterbacks. I don't care what you say about Tua. And he's only played in good offenses with good offensive systems. And I'm not saying Tyreek Hill would be bad. I'm just saying Tyreek Hill would definitely be taking a downgrade to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that is concerning. T. Higgins, a risk, but I feel like a more all-around, can do everything wide receiver who, if you need him to be a big body, he could be a big body. If you need him to be a deep threat, he could be a deep threat. If you need him to work the slot, he could work the slot. Tyreek Hill could do this all. Tyreek Hill is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I'm going to say it, way better than than T. Higgins. But in the Steelers offense, the way they maneuver things with Justin Fields, I just feel T. Higgins is the safer bet, fits more of what the Steelers are trying to do.
All right, let's go over to Chris, who has a couple comments here. First, getting Cooper Kupp would be great if we had a quarterback who could throw the ball. Let's fix the offensive line, which protects Fields and helps the run and the pass game.
I agree that you have to fix the offensive line, but I think the offensive line is in place. There will be maybe one addition to it this offseason, and it probably won't be a starter unless they get rid of Isaac Seumalo. They'll move Broderick Jones to the left side, and they'll walk into the season with Broderick, Seumalo, most likely, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fautanu. That's the guys that they drafted to be the future of the offensive line, and that's what they're going to try to develop moving forward. To be honest with you, I'm pretty comfortable with the Steelers' offensive line right now. I am. If they wanted to go out and get a guy like Gray Zabel, who we talked about yesterday, if they wanted to go out and get an early round guard to either replace Seumalo now or in the future, I like that. But besides that, their other four pieces are there. They just have to develop them. They have to turn them into really good starters. And hopefully this year they start to click and things start to work. And I think that it's a real possibility that it does.
All right, let's go to Chris's second comment here, who says, Noah, if you would trade with the Rams for Stafford, then why not consider another quarterback trade, like one for Dak Prescott or Trevor Lawrence?
I would definitely trade for Dak Prescott. I am not the biggest
million?
fan. I'm not the biggest fan of Dak Prescott for his price tag. A little too overrated in my eyes. Trevor Lawrence is very expensive, but I also think has so much upside still and is very young, and I would be all about it. There's no chance he's getting moved, not after they just hired a head coach who comes from saving Baker and whose job is now to save Trevor Lawrence. Dak Prescott probably is available to some degree. I wouldn't make a trade for Dak. I'd rather go Matthew Stafford than Dak Prescott. You're cheaper, less compensation, probably the same, if not more upside, just like your team as a whole with him on your staff or on your roster.
Let's go down to Rob Little. Appreciate you, Rob. Says, why haven't the Steelers made a deal with Justin yet? Lock him up for the first day that we can.
I believe that they're going to. It's just a matter of, so the NFL process with a lot of these guys is the season ends, they go on vacation. They shut their phone off. They're not talking to agents. They're not talking to anybody. They will have some little communication here or there with teams. I'm sure Justin's back by now. A lot of people go to the Super Bowl. Like this is the time where those conversations start to happen. The Steelers will then go into, all right, let's figure this thing out. I believe that they will have a contract in for Justin if Justin's the guy that ends up wanting to be in Pittsburgh because this is a two-way street. And if he does, and he agrees with a contract that is, as we've been told, reasonable for the Steelers, they'll ink him the second that they can. I would guess it's in the next 2 weeks. That would be my guess. We know how the Steelers operate. It will be Valentine's Day the second that I sit down at a dinner reservation, but it will be right around that 2 week period, I would imagine. I have a hard time believing they're going to get to the end of the month before they ink either of these guys.
All right, let's go to Madeline, who says, now that it's looking more likely that we're going to retain Fields, where do you think Russ goes?
I believe it's going to be Vegas. It just makes too much sense not to be Vegas. Vegas will offer him money. They are in the perfect situation right now where they would like to win a Super Bowl, but they're not. They realistically, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. They just want to get better. They want to put pieces in place so that when Pete Carroll leaves in 3 years, whoever replaces him is set up to win. That's what's happening right now. Is Pete Carroll is a bridge head coach who is coming in here to set up a staff, set up a roster, develop this thing, figure it out, get it ready, and somebody on his staff, whoever they deem next, to step in here and replace him and keep the train rolling. Is it the best idea? No, but I don't hate it, to be honest. And I think Russ, for a 2-year deal, walks into Vegas, maybe a 3-year deal, walks into Vegas. You draft somebody early next year, and then you have time to develop your team while having somebody learn and develop behind Russ. I think that works. If the Raiders drafted Jackson Dart at the beginning of the second round this year, it would not surprise me with Russ on their roster and say, hey, there it is. That's the setup there.
Let's go to Brimstone, who says, when I heard the news last night that LA wanted a trade package for Kupp, quote, immediately, my first thought was that ruled out the Steelers because they usually take forever and a day to do anything. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong on that one. I don't know what immediately is. Like, I don't believe you can make a trade until after the Super Bowl, right? I could be wrong there, but it's like, I've never heard of a trade that happened Super Bowl week. Have you?
I'd have to go back and look, but nothing springs to mind immediately. No,
I mean, yeah, just like you said, like I'd have to look, but I don't believe I've ever heard of a trade happening on Super Bowl week. I don't know if you're able to do it. Maybe you are. If that's the case, the Steelers are out. I would imagine it comes after the Super Bowl, probably within a week, maybe a week and a half, and Cooper Kupp gets moved. Look, I would bet you the Steelers made a phone call the moment that tweet went out and just said, let's just talk. Let's just have very early conversations about where we stand and where you guys stand and see where it goes. Omar Khan works a lot faster than the rest of that organization. I'll tell you that.
And if it gives you any more hope, Brimstone, the Steelers have been working on a wide receiver trade since last June. So maybe this is just a culmination of 8 months, 9 months of work, and they have been dragging their feet, but this is just the end of the line.
Yeah, they already had the trade ready at the deadline for Kupp, and it didn't work out.
Cross the T's and dot the I's.
Yeah,
we'll talk about this after the Super Bowl.
Yep, exactly. So here we are. Could happen any day.
Let's go to Alan, who says, why not shoot your shot with DK Metcalf?
I would shoot my shot with DK Metcalf. I mean, if you're talking wide receiver trade, I'd shoot my shot with DK Metcalf. The problem is I think you're getting DK Metcalf for a second round pick. I'm not as comfortable giving up a second round pick for a wide receiver when T. Higgins is available. If you're going to spend $30 million a year on a wideout, just get one without giving up a second round pick. That's how I feel. Cooper's 20, which that 10 is significant. That's a whole other player. You got $5 million more. You just signed your defensive tackle. That's a big chunk of money right there. And to not give up a second round pick, I mean, it just, like, Cooper would be a fourth, like we said. And I just feel like it works out better there. I think DK is a much better option than Cooper Kupp. I just wouldn't look at him as a better option than T. Higgins.
Let's not forget there's no guarantee he's available.
Yeah, I would imagine he is, though, right? I got a hard time believing they're just, like, at some point, I think he's going to be irritated enough to say, get me out of here.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we truly don't know, whereas Cooper Kupp literally put a dissertation on Twitter saying,
true.
They want me out immediately. So
that's true.
I mean,
that's true. And DK could be next. He could be the Myles Garrett that, he's just dotting the T's or crossing the T's, dotting the I's on his very sharp looking statement saying, Geno Smith ain't it, pal. Get me out of here.
Verbatim. I'd love to see it. Let's jump down to Rob Little. Appreciate you again. Rob says, why doesn't anyone remember Myles ripping Mason Rudolph's helmet off and beating him with it? I would imagine everybody but Mason, due to the concussions, remembers that.
Yeah, I remember that very, very clearly. I remember the whole situation, to be honest with you. I remember the incident. I remember the aftermath. I remember everybody getting in trouble. I remember I remember everything. I remember the allegations afterwards. I remember the back closet apology speech that Mason Rudolph gave us 2 days after it happened. I remember it all. I was there. Look, I don't think Myles Garrett is an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If we're going to be very honest, I don't think guys like TJ. But to be very honest, at the same time, I think anybody in that organization would say, look, dude, we can look past this. You're Myles Garrett. Let's go try to win a Super Bowl. Like, we'll figure it out. But yeah, no, we all, I remember that very vividly, actually, the whole situation.
Let's go to John, who says, as far as free agents go, what is the allure to go to the Steelers? Our offense is stagnant and predictable. Not to mention, we don't have a quarterback. I don't see Higgins getting antsy to catch passes from Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, they will have a quarterback in place by the time that they get to free agency. At the end of the day, look at those inside the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base and literally every single other person outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base has two totally different views about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those within the fan base and the media and the analysts and like me, you, Nick, everybody included, anybody in these realms look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and say, why the hell would you want to come here? What are you doing here? Are you going to get better? You compete for a Super Bowl? The fan base is awesome, great until you stink, and then they will let you know you suck, which is that's how you should be as a fan base. There's nothing that you don't have a quarterback. If you do have a quarterback, he's 25 years old and nobody knows if he's really actually good. Your offensive coordinator might stink. You have no running back right now, and your entire offensive line is first and second year guys plus a 32-year-old, and maybe that doesn't work out. Who knows? Plus, your defense isn't as good as it used to be. And Mike Tomlin, great coach, hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years. Not looking good. Those on the outside are like Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers, historic organization. Arthur Smith is a well-respected offensive coordinator. George Pickens has had success here. Deontay's had success here. AB's had success here. Maybe I'm next. Again, I don't think I agree with it, but there's a very different outlook on the outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm not just saying that. I've spoken to people. I've spoken to players. I'm well aware of how the NFL and the rest of the NFL world views the Steelers, and it is drastically different.
Let's jump down to Danny, who says, I'm moving from Delaware to North Carolina in the summer. When is the best time to come see a Latrobe practice this offseason?
Dude, that's so tough because first off, hope the move's smooth. Moving sucks. That's tough. It's tough. You got to go the second week. If you're gonna time it correctly, you have to go the second week. I believe it's the first day, but it might be the second day. You want to get that first day in pads. That's what you want. Because after that, it's guessing. You're guessing whether it's going to be pads or not. And to come all the way from North Carolina to Latrobe to see guys in helmets and shorts is not worth it, in my opinion. So you want to time it out. I think it's the second week, first day. I'll get that guaranteed for you before July. Just remind me. But I would not take a risk going any other day.
Well, second week Friday is Friday Night Lights, is it not? That's another one that you
Friday Night Lights is also another great one. That's an instant.
Put your foot on that, yeah.
Yeah. That's another good one. That one's. The only problem with that one that I have is if you're making a trip to Latrobe to go see training, it's a different atmosphere. Yeah. It's a great atmosphere, but you're at a high school stadium. Like it's like going to a high school game with NFL players. It's a great time. It's awesome. But if you're looking for the like go to the old college, drive into Latrobe, you're in the middle of nowhere, guys are practicing the field, you know what I mean? Get some autographs. It's different. You're not going to get, your chances are you're not going to get autographs for Friday Night Lights. And it's just a different atmosphere.
All right, let's go to Marlon Lewis, who says, why haven't I heard anything about Jair Alexander to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I don't know. I have not. Is Jair Alexander available?
I mean, there was some stuff earlier this year about him and not quite going well with the Green Bay Packers, but I don't know if he's available.
Yeah, I knew that, but I didn't know if he was available. I mean, if he is, awesome. But I also think that Jair Alexander has some, like he has gotten in some organizational trouble that I don't think the Steelers would be all on board with right now. You asked 2 years ago, sure, but where we stand right now, they might look at it and say, we're cleaning house of these guys. We don't need to add another one. That's where I'd come in to get some concern there.
All right, let's jump to Ryan, who says, if Will Johnson is still there around 17, would you trade up? And if you would, what would it cost?
Oh, from 21 to 17, you're giving up like a fourth, maybe a third round pick, and I would do it without question. Without question. Will Johnson is a top 5 player in this NFL draft. I would go get him. I wouldn't even, would you, do you think otherwise? I'd give up a third round pick to go up 4 spots.
Yeah, to be able to go out there and get, in my opinion, one of the best players, not just corners in this draft, and probably one of the best corners that's been taken in the last couple of years. Yes, I would trade up a couple of spots to get Will Johnson.
Without question.
Let's go over to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, do you guys really think Kupp is worth the price tag? He's one of the most exciting receivers in the league when healthy, but we all know he probably won't play 17 games.
Yeah, that's why I think if you're giving up a 4th round pick, you're taking less of a risk on the guy. If you're giving up do the Steelers have a 4th round pick now that I'm sitting here thinking about it? I believe they do, because Justin Fields played less than 50%, so he would be a 6th. I think if you're giving up a 4th round pick, I think if you're paying $20 million for a guy that you are taking a shot on, a risk on, worth it. The risk reward evens out there. If you're going higher than that, I think you're getting into some trouble where, like, if he doesn't play 17 games, you just gave up a 3rd round pick. What could you have gotten with a 3rd round pick? Those questions are there. 4th round pick at that point, that guy's probably not going to play his rookie season. I feel pretty okay. If the plan is you're going to surround him, like Kupp's not your only addition this offseason, whether that's a rookie or another veteran, even if it's not T. Higgins, that's not your only move this offseason. It is not George Pickens and Cooper Kupp, Calvin Austin, and Roman Wilson. That's not it. You're getting somebody else in the mix there. You have to, and I'd feel okay about that.
All right. Shout out to Michael Fowler, who's doing our checks here. Says in 1989, Walker went from the Cowboys to the Vikings before the Super Bowl. And it also said in 2022, Odell Beckham Jr. was traded during game week.
Wow. I didn't know either of those things. That's crazy, actually. All right. Well, clock's a ticking. Clock is a ticking. Looks like I am on Cooper Kupp watch, which I didn't expect to be the week, but look at, I call it, there's a reason that all of my dress codes come with a backpack. So, you never know.
Let's go to AJ, who says, what position do you think the Steelers front office is going to be looking at in the first round of the draft?
Oh, wide receiver, defensive tackle, corner, maybe. And now that we're sitting here, our offensive line, because Gray Zabel is apparently like the guy to watch right now for the Steelers in the first round. So we'll see if that changes. I'm sure it will. The Senior Bowl is step 1. There will be others. What I like about this year and what we get out of the Senior Bowl is, and I think it's hilarious, because you go back a couple of years and I'm at the Senior Bowl hyping up Malik Willis. I have no sources. I have no idea about anything. All I'm doing is watching Mike Tomlin meet this guy's mom. I'm going, that's it, dude. They just drafted him 20th overall. Like I was there. I watched it happen. I would love to know what was actually being said and talked about back then, because what I'm hearing now is, Mike Tomlin might not have met Gray Zabel's mom. She's probably living in North Dakota, like the rest of the North Dakota State people. And doing our North Dakota things. You know, what do you do up there? Hump bison or something? And our bison are from North Dakota, I believe.
I mean,
Maybe
that is
South
their
Dakota.
mascot.
That's all you do,
I
man.
don't think you.
That is all you do, dude. Mason McCormick got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then 30 minutes later, Pat Meyer calls him, says, "Hey, man, excited. What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm just outside grilling some halibut." Come on. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, the only problem with your theory here is Gray Zabel's from South Dakota. He just defected to North Dakota to go to college.
All right, so he's grilling. He's grilling halibut. That's what he's doing. No bison. But what I like about that is that there's no like excess hype around a guy like that where you could start to actually believe that. Right now, that's a name to watch.
All right, let's go to Alex, who says, "Why didn't we game plan more heavily with Darnell catching passes?"
That is a question for the ages right there. Wish I knew. No idea. I think it's wild that he didn't. I'll tell you this, and I hate to make this comment, but I got to make it. Did you notice what Russ did a lot in the Pro Bowl? He threw over the middle of the field.
You notice what also wasn't there in the Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
6'7" offensive lineman.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe there's a correlation there. I don't know. Maybe it's just a weird coincidence. Who knows? What I'm saying is I was watching those highlights going, that was a great pass to Jamar Chase over the middle of the field. Saw none of those. So I don't know.
That one pass also would have been a hospital ball if it was actual football too. Because
somebody would have died.
Knocked his helmet. He would have knocked his head off. But
yeah, definitely. But you know, when Jackson Smith-Njigba's playing quarterback, anything goes in the NFL.
Let's finish it off with Leroy, who says, "What do you think we can trade to the Texans to get wide receiver John Mechie?"
I would imagine John Mechie is like actually on the trade block this year. I know last year there was like conversations, but it's the end of his rookie contract. Excuse me. He still doesn't have a place there. If he has any trade value, it makes more sense to get rid of him than to hold on to him. I think you could get John Mechie for like a 4th round pick, maybe a 5th round pick if you really negotiate it well. I don't think he's going for any higher than that. He's going to be a guy that maybe only lasts a year. You're taking a shot on him. He's not a starter to whoever you trade for him. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you're looking at it going, all right, we could get this guy as a pretty quality backup with some upside. Cool. If you want to give up a 5th round pick, awesome. I don't think John Mechie would be very high on my list this offseason, though.
That's a wrap for today, then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are going to head out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow, maybe with some Cooper Kupp news because things happen on Super Bowl week, apparently. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.